Hello, I'm G. Marshall Johnson. Mob memorabilia is hard to come by and can be quite expensive. After all, most mobsters don't walk the red carpet and sign autographs. Therefore, items which bear their signatures are few and far between. But bloodlettersandbadmen.com has been able to get our hands on numerous items like this signed canceled check from Joseph Bonanno. As a way of saying thank you to those who have watched, commented, and subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are giving away this piece of mob history from our collection. Think about it. This check was once held in the hands of the man who was perhaps the most powerful mafia godfather in history. Joseph Bonanno was born January 18, 1905, and died on May 11, 2002. After the Castellamarese War and the death of his own godfather Salvatore Maranzano, he became a founding member of Charles Lucky Luciano's crime commission and the boss of the family which still bears his name today, the Bonanno family. This signed check is drawn on his personal account and is dated April 25, 2000. It was made out to Truly Nolan, an exterminator, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. Joseph Bonanno's signature is PSA DNA certified. To enter this giveaway, go to www.bloodlettersandbadmen.com and click on the tab across the top marked Giveaway. Enter a valid email address and you will be sent a verification. This verification email will be sent to the address you provided. Before you are entered for the drawing, you must click the link to verify your email address. Please read the contest rules and good luck.
Will you stop with that camera, Freddie? Look at this guy's nuts.
Larry wants some chicken.
Come on, Freddie, will you stop? I'm gonna shoot you.
Did you meet my friend Ben? He's one of the Dover brothers.
Ben Dover?
Dover.
The agent, I think I had the machine on all the while.
By all outward appearances, they looked like two fine, upstanding American young men. They had boyish charm and were well kept. They loved hanging out with friends, goofing around, enjoying the sunshine, and weekend barbecues. But as the old adage goes, looks can be deceiving. As part of the DeMeo crew who worked for the Gambino crime family and capo Nino Gaggi, Anthony Senter and Joseph Testa would leave a trail of bloody dissected bodies in their wake. The DeMeo crew was notorious for their unmerciful ruthlessness and proclivity for violence. Law enforcement believes that the outfit was involved in 75 to 200 murders throughout the mid-1970s and into the early 1980s. And Anthony Senter and Joseph Testa had their hands stained red with blood. Anthony Michael Senter was born in 1955 to first-generation Italian immigrants. He hailed from Canarsie, a borough of Brooklyn, New York. It was reported that he was raised in a turbulent household and had a contemptuous view of the outside legitimate world's ways. His best friend and partner in crime was Joseph Carmine Testa. Born the same year, Testa was one of 9 children. Together they earned the nickname the Gemini Twins because they were always together, and the primary hangout of the DeMeo crew was the Gemini Lounge. It was said by an associate who knew the pair well that they were so close that Joseph would start a sentence and Anthony would finish it. In 1970, when Testa was 15 years old, a local kid was mugged by a knife-wielding Puerto Rican from East New York. The assaulted victim complained to Testa, who rounded up Anthony and some other friends and spent all day looking for the would-be assailant. 3 years later, Testa himself nearly died in a bar fight with a Puerto Rican opponent after the blade punctured his lung. His pal Anthony Senter, filled with rage, tracked down the Puerto Rican knifeman and nearly beat him to death with his fist. On the street, Testa was considered more dangerous than Senter by their criminal associates. Mutual friends admitted they liked Testa, who appeared to be the leader, more than Senter, and always went to Joey Testa when problems arose, because he was considered to be more sympathetic of the two and could empathize with their plight. In fact, to most, Senter came off as a bit strange. Roy DeMeo's son, writing about Senter, explained, "There was something slick and phony about him. I didn't trust him." Doing small-time robberies and auto theft, Testa and Senter one day crossed the path of Harvey Chris Rosenberg, a meeting that would change the course of their lives for the better and ultimately the worse. Rosenberg hired Senter and Testa to wax his Corvette and Porsche. As they were working, they struck up a conversation, and the trio became inseparable. They began stealing cars together, delivering them to chop shops around Canarsie. Rosenberg introduced his newfound friends to his mentor, Roy DeMeo, later joining the crew and becoming regular fixtures at DeMeo's Gemini Lounge. These three, along with their leader, made up the core group of the DeMeo crew. Though Roy had been a part of the underworld for some time, it wasn't until 1973, at the age of 30, that he committed his first murder. He and Nino Gadji were silent partners in a porno lab. Their partner was a squirrely little fella named Paul Rothenberg. After an arrest, and fearing he would flip on them, they decided they had no choice but to take him out. American Mafia history writes, "Once Rothenberg was released on bail awaiting trial, DeMeo summoned him to a meeting at a local diner and then shot him to death in a nearby alley. Later, DeMeo had an argument with another partner, Andre Katz. Katz owned a body shop and was in a dispute over money with Chris Rosenberg. The disagreement drug on for some time until Roy decided to end the argument, the old-fashioned way. In June 1975, Katz was lured and confronted by DeMeo and some of his crew. Katz was abducted, stabbed, and dismembered. They wrapped the individual parts of his body in plastic bags and dumped them in a landfill. Such was the methodology of the DeMeo crew. No body, no crime." Again, citing American Mafia history, after the Katz murder, DeMeo and his crew began committing Mafia-sanctioned hits. The DeMeo crew would lure their targets to the Gemini Lounge, where they would kill them, bleed them dry, and then cut them into pieces to be disposed of. Former crew member turned informant Frederick Denome explained, "The target would be lured into the back of the Gemini Lounge, at which some point, usually DeMeo, would shoot them and quickly wrap a towel around their head. Then another of his crew would stab the person in the heart to lessen the flow of blood. After letting the body bleed in the bathtub, they would cut the body into pieces and drop it in several locations." It was reported by those who turned informant years later that the crew was so callous that while the bodies drained of blood in the bathtub, crew members would order pizza and hot dogs, eating, drinking, and laughing it up. This method of killing and dismembering the bodies became known as the Gemini method. As the 1980s approached, DeMeo and crew, including Senter and Testa, were making hundreds of thousands of dollars in a stolen car ring and drug distribution. But the first crack appeared in 1979. Senter and Testa's good friend, Chris Rosenberg, robbed the wrong person, a Cuban drug dealer who wanted revenge for Rosenberg slaying his people in a deal gone bad. DeMeo stalled when he was given the order from Gadji to take Chris out, but finally he lamented. Under the pretense of a meeting, DeMeo shot Rosenberg in the head. He fell to one knee, looking up at Roy in disbelief. Roy, who considered Rosenberg his son, froze as he caught Chris's eye. But Anthony Senter rose to the occasion and fired 4 more bullets into Chris's head, putting an end to his misery and man-made dreams. History would repeat itself again for Senter and Testa, who were called upon in 1983 to assist Gadji in the execution of their boss, Roy DeMeo. It is believed that Gadji pulled the trigger, but no one knows for sure. DeMeo was shot 7 times and found frozen 10 days later in the trunk of his car. He was shot once behind each ear, which suggested to some that Joey Testa and Anthony Senter symbolically demonstrated to Nino Gadji that they would accept the necessity of the work by firing their own be-sures into the contorted brain of their ex-leader. Having helped Roy murder their childhood buddy Chris Rosenberg, such betrayal was nothing new. After the murder of Roy DeMeo, Senter and Testa drifted into the Lucchese crime family. According to former Lucchese underboss Anthony Gaspipe Casso, they were responsible for a murder on June 13, 1986, of Russian-American gangster Vladimir Reznikov. After a bloody career of murder and treachery, the Gemini Twins were arrested in what was one of the largest RICO cases up until that point. On September 14, 1989, Senter and Testa were both found guilty on numerous counts and sentenced to life in prison. Being sent to separate prisons to serve their term, the Gemini Twins are forever apart. As of 2015, Anthony Senter continues to serve his sentence at the United States Penitentiary in Allenwood, Pennsylvania, and now has a release date of October 13, 2032. Testa is currently serving his sentence at a federal prison in Arkansas for crimes that include multiple murders. He is scheduled for release 10 days after Anthony Senter. At the time of their release, they will both be 77 years old.